Chapter 6, Organizational Change, Part 2. In this particular PowerPoint presentation, we're not going to focus so much on the police. Instead, we're going to actually focus on the process of change and the notion of how failure factors into success. So these are concepts and strategies that we're going to take a look at that we could apply to almost anything. You know, whether we're talking about changing a police department, changing an entire organization, or losing a couple extra pounds, or maybe 50 extra pounds, or stop smoking, or any other kind of behavior. The information that we have here in these particular slides can be applied to that. So we're not going to talk a whole lot about police in these couple slides, but we will talk about the process of change. Because if you're going to be someday that police chief who does want to bring about change in that police department, you might want to find these old PowerPoints, come back to them, and take a look at some of these notions because they can really be helpful. The first that we're going to examine is something known as the stages of change. And it's really the product, the brainchild of a couple researchers, Prochaska and DiClementi, and more Prochaska. He was the main researcher and the main author. And they came up with this notion of that is sometimes referred to as trans-theoretical model of change. What Prochaska and DiClementi did was they said, nobody really has, before them, nobody had really studied if there was a certain process to changing. I mean, there were lots of research studies done on particular programs for things like diet, diet programs, stop smoking, alcohol, Alcoholics Anonymous, those kinds of things. And they said, okay, we have all these programs, and most of the research is on, is the Atkins diet better than the paleo diet or whatever? But nobody had really asked, is there an actual process to change? Regardless of what diet you're on, regardless of what stop smoking program you're on, or Alcoholics Anonymous, or Narcotics Anonymous, or whatever, is there underlying all of that a greater chance for success if you use go through a particular process, particular stages? And so what Prochaska and DiClementi did was they collected hundreds of studies that were done on behavioral change, and they examined them, and they looked for common threads to try to identify which participants were the most successful and why. Did they go through certain steps? And they were kind of astonished to find, yeah, there is actually a process, and it's this 6-step process that you see in front of you. And so whatever you're doing, again, you may want to lose a few pounds. If you skip over any of these steps, if you take them out of order and skip over them, your chances of success are much lower, Prochaska and DiClementi found. If you follow them, your chances for success are much greater. And so they actually realized, and they wrote a book about this called Changing for Good. So if you want to learn more about this, I highly recommend this book. Again, it's Prochaska and DiClementi, and it's called Changing for Good. But if you go through these steps, they found your chances of actually permanently changing that behavior are much greater than if you skip over parts. And so let's take a look at the different steps. And so the first step is one where you're really not even aware of things. It's the pre-contemplation stage. You're not even aware there's a problem. You're not aware that your smoking is problematic. You're not aware that your weight is problematic. You're not aware that your police department is racially profiling. We can apply this to organizations. We can apply it to individuals. So there's denial. Maybe you are somewhat aware. You realize you put on some weight because every time you step on the scale, it's giving you back numbers you don't want to see. But you pass it off and you say, no, I'm not that bad. And so you are somewhat aware that there's a problem and you just deny it. You're aware that your police department may be racially profiling, but you deny it. Hey, that's just what we got to do. It's our style of policing. It's not really racially profiling, etc., etc., etc. Or maybe you truly aren't aware of the problem. You're unaware of the behavior. You haven't noticed that you're drinking a lot more than you used to. And so You don't view that as that you maybe have become an alcoholic, but other people maybe are aware. There may be some resistance. Again, you may feel hopeless. Nothing can help me. I can't accomplish this. There's no reason to change. I'll never change. If you can progress to the second stage, contemplation, this is where you do now become aware of the problem. Either you become self-aware or someone has brought it to your attention. So again, if it's a police department, maybe a lawsuit has been filed and that was the cold splash of water in the face that woke you up. Or maybe you realized that on your own, hey, we're racially profiling. We're using excessive force too much, any of these things. Or again, on an individual level, yeah, I have put on a lot of weight. I am smoking too much. I am drinking too much. Okay, so you are aware of the problem, but as that second point says, you may have no idea of how to change. A lot of times, this is when people jump from contemplation all the way up to action. So, I mean, how many times, I'm guessing a lot of you have done this. You say, I've got to start exercise. I have put on a couple pounds. So I'm going to join that fitness club tomorrow. And you rush out and you join the fitness club. You skip right over preparation. So you go from contemplation right to action. But you're not ready for action yet. And so how many times have you signed up for a gym membership, or you started a new diet and you got real gung-ho, I'm going to do this new diet, and you go out to the grocery store and buy all the stuff that you need for the diet, and then it sits in your refrigerator and it goes bad, or you never go to the gym again after the first couple times. You never complete it. And so Prochaska and DiClemente would say that's because you skipped steps. You go from contemplation, you have to go through the next step, which is preparation. This is where now you actually take the time to plan out the change. I saw recently on some exercise web page that this particular exercise club asks you 3 times the same question. Why do you want to exercise? And so first you answer, and maybe you'll say something real general like, I want to get in better shape. And then you're supposed to ask yourself again, okay, why do I want to exercise to get in better shape? And so that forces you to dig a little deeper. Well, because I'm worried about my health. Okay, ask it one more time. Why do I want to exercise to get in shape for my health? Because I want to be there for my kids and my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, etc., etc., etc. So now you're getting to the more emotional part. And this is what Prochaska and DiClemente said you need to do. You need to get emotionally involved in this change. Not just mentally, not just planning, but you need to get emotionally involved. So that may mean they even recommend watching, those public service announcements of smokers who you've probably seen them on TV who've had tracheotomies put in and died from cancer, and you're hearing their last words, some of their last words before they die from cancer, all these things. Get that emotional involvement, because you got to get your mind and your heart involved in this. Same with the police department. You got to get their hearts as well as their minds. So it's better if you announce your intention to change. Put it out there so other people know about it, because then they can start to hold you responsible. And then get set to take action. So actually, if it's a diet, prepare your house so that you can actually get rid of the junk food. Make sure that you set aside time for the exercise, and that nothing else is going to interfere, so that there's no excuse, those kinds of things. Then you can move on. When you're adequately prepared, you can then move on to action. And so here's where you can actually start to do things, whatever it may be. And you got to, as it says here, you see the third point there, after visible action, overt behavior change, you start to have a difference in your thinking and self-image. So now it's become part of that action, has become part of you. You're eating better, you're not smoking, you're not drinking, you're not doing, it's now part of your self-image. I am no longer a drinker. I'm no longer a smoker. Then once you have moved sufficiently through action, then you can move on to maintenance, which is basically making sure that you don't relapse. But Prochaska and DiClemente said anticipate relapsing. It is very likely to happen. So if that happens, then be prepared to go back and prepare better, or go back to your action phase or whatever it may be. So this is a lifetime commitment. This isn't just something, well, I'm over it now, I dieted, I lost the 50 pounds, and now I can start eating Twinkies and Ho-Hos again. Okay, you don't want to be doing that. But if it does happen, don't have, don't completely give up and say, I'm worthless, I can't complete it. No, you need to just go back a couple steps. You don't need to go back all the way to the beginning. Termination, that's your finish line. That's where you say, the drinking is no longer a problem. Smoking, I don't desire a cigarette anymore. I'm a healthy eater. Your new behavior has become your new normal. So again, if you go through these steps, chances are you're going to be much more successful. You're going to reach termination, and you're going to have that changed behavior. Another thing we should anticipate is we're going to fail, and don't be afraid of it. So true innovators, as I have here, succeed because they fail forward. And what I mean by failing forward is, this is a term coined by many others, you see failures as learning opportunities. You don't take it so much to heart that you think I'm completely worthless. But instead, the real innovators say, okay, I messed up this time, but let me figure out how to learn from that and go forward. So I'm failing forward. Every failure brings me closer to where I want to be. So you can't be afraid of failure. I mean, I have to tell my kids this all the time because they're in sports. You got to take those chances. It's tough, but take the chances. Don't take, irresponsible risk, but be willing to take some risk. You hear it all the time, race car drivers. If I'm not wrecking a car every once in a while, I'm not racing. I'm not pushing it to the edge where I need to be. A quarterback, if I'm not throwing some interceptions, I'm probably not really pushing myself. I'm too conservative. So what are some keys to success with this failing forward? The mindset. There's an entire book that's called Mindset that's very good if you want to pick that up. And it really breaks mindsets down into two, learning or fixed. The learning mindset says, I am always questioning. I am always learning that Michael Jordan became Michael Jordan because he worked hard. He could always get better. The fixed mindset instead says, well, he was Michael Jordan because he was born that way. He didn't have to work. So the people with the fixed mindsets and the organizations with the fixed mindsets are going to be stuck in the past. The future is going to pass them by. The organizations that are learning organizations, that are constantly striving to get better and are constantly working at it and realize how important work is, they're the ones who are going to adapt to the future. So they're the ones that are always questioning, how can we make a better product? How can we deliver a better service? How can I be better? If we want to be successful, we often need to have this connection to something greater. So that could be, maybe you're religious, it's to God. But it doesn't have to be religious. It could be, I'm part of a community. I'm part of something bigger. I'm building towards something. So if you can get that police department or yourself to connect to what you're doing to a greater cause, you're probably going to be more successful. And when failure comes, you're going to still have your eyes set on that greater good that's down the road. Optimism. Okay, you want to have your feet set in reality. So this isn't the kind of optimism that, the world's falling down around you and you're whistling and you got a big smile on your face. But this is where you say, when I have a success, I'm going to treat that as I'm a good person. I'm a good athlete. I'm a good police officer. I'm whatever. So when something good happens, you should universalize it. You should say, I'm good at this. Don't be afraid of success. But when you have something bad happen, you need to be resilient, so you need to localize. And what I mean by that is to say, well, if I didn't do well on the test, it was because I didn't study hard enough. It's not because I was stupid. Too many people will right away, if they fail a test, will say, I'm stupid, I'm just not smart enough. No, we want you to learn from it. It's a learning environment, and say, okay, I didn't do well, I didn't study. I know how to fix it. That's what optimism really is. And that's what resilience is. It's bouncing back from failure. You anticipate worst case scenarios and you prepare for them. So it's not putting your head in the sand and thinking everything will go well, but it's anticipating those and prepare. So we can do this with organizations. You need to practice what you want to be. If you want to be an honest person, be honest all the time. You want to be a great athlete? Practice it. Exercise. Don't just say, well, and I'll be good when the game comes. You know, you want to be a good student, you got to practice it all the time. Look for good role models. Very important. Try to be like the people who you respect. Follow what they do, see what they do, learn from them. You need to have a willingness to take risks. As I said before, don't be afraid of failing. Take those risks. They should be calculated risks. Don't just be foolish about them, but take those risks. And then finally, we need to have a safety net. So we need to have the trust of our significant others, our bosses, our family, of others, that if we fail, we're doing it because we're trying to succeed. And so if we really put in a good faith effort, they should be there to help us up when we fail and to give us support and help us to learn from our failures to move forward. Those are the best coaches. Those are the best leaders. So again, for changing organizations, we need to be willing to take those risks to fail forward, but we need to practice some of these things on this page to really be comfortable enough to fail forward and to learn from those failures to move forward and to progress forward and to become even better at what we're trying to be.